my friends, welcome to God Focus this morning. The title of today's episode, Highly Favored. There are many in the Bible that had God's favor. Some were even highly favored. When you walk in a place that you have God's favor, the enemy tries even harder to take you out. He wants to destroy you because you have God's favor on your life. He understands better than we do that God uses those he favors to tear down the strongholds of the enemy. The thought of being highly favored sounds like a good place to be, but before you sign up to be the next, think about it. There is a price to be paid for that favor. Gabriel told Mary that she was highly favored, yet Mary suffered things that no other woman has ever suffered. She watched that baby grow up and become a man. Then she watched him be beaten beyond recognition. She watched him, who was innocent, be nailed to a cross. And she watched him die. Do you want to be highly favored? John the Baptist was a forerunner of Christ. He was highly favored. Because he stood for truth and honesty, he ended up losing his head. But before the end, he got to go out and tell people about Jesus, and he had the privilege to be the one to actually baptize Jesus. His life was full of adventure and miracles. He had many followers that went on to be followers of Jesus. Do you want to be highly favored? There was a movement a few years ago that everyone was favored. They would say, God will give you the best seats in the house. He will give you places of prestige and honor. But that was not exactly accurate. I am really about to blow up some of your theology. God will do things for one that he will not do for another. Pause and think on that for a moment. Let it sink in. God will do things for one that he will not do for another. It doesn't mean that he loves them more. It is about relationship and it is about trust. Think of it this way. A man has several children. He loves them all, but will only allow certain ones to drive his car. Only the one he knows that has skills to drive and proper license. He won't turn the car keys over to his 6-year-old because the 6-year-old is not mature enough to handle it. But the 18-year-old that has always been obedient, he will give the keys. But the 16-year-old that is always in trouble is not so ready to turn over those keys. If we want God's favor in our lives, we need to be obedient and follow his laws. When he shows us favor, we need to be prepared for those who God will not turn the keys over to. They will be jealous and may try to stand in our way. Instead of acting with jealousy, they need to yield more fully to God. They must be obedient in order to find God's favor. It is not easy to be chosen and walk in favor. Look at the 12 disciples. Out of the 12, Jesus only let 3 into his inner circle. One of the remaining 9 was a betrayer, Judas. 11 went on to be part of the original church, the 120 that received the Holy Ghost on the day of Pentecost. These original 11 suffered many things for the gospel, yet they had God's favor on their lives. They spread the gospel across the ancient world, but in the process angered a lot of people not willing to give up their money, power, and position. They had false gods and served their purpose and didn't want to know the truth. These people were often in charge of courts and governments. This is how most of them ended up dying for the gospel. Let us take a brief look at our history. Peter went to Antioch and to Rome and was crucified upside down in Rome for the gospel. Andrew was crucified in Greece. James was martyred in Jerusalem. John is the only one who died naturally at an old age, but he was exiled to an island called Patmos where he could not influence other people. Philip was crucified upside down at Phrygia, which is now part of modern-day Turkey. Bartholomew was martyred in India with a sword and beheaded. Thomas was pierced with a spear and martyred in India. Matthew was stabbed to death in Ethiopia for the truth of the gospel. The other James was thrown from the top of the temple in Jerusalem. Thaddeus traveled to Mesopotamia and was martyred in Beirut. Simon was killed in Persia. Matthias, who was the one that replaced the betrayer Judas, was stoned and beheaded in the Caspian region. These men, along with others, spread the gospel and paid a high price to tell someone about Jesus. Today, we don't want people to think that we're weird or that we're uptight. We don't want someone to talk about us behind our back. We have gotten too complacent, yet we want God's favor. To be favored of God doesn't always mean that everything will be sunshine and rainbows. It often means that you will walk through hard things. But it also means that He will give you grace to face the hard things with His strength. Job was favored by God because he knew he could trust Him with the attacks of the enemy. He knew Job would let his light shine. Do you want to be highly favored by God? If so, I can promise you that life will never be boring, but it will be full of obstacles that you can overcome as long as you keep your God focus. Thanks for watching. Until next time, be bold, be brave, and keep your God focus. Like, share, and subscribe for more encouragement. Have a wonderful day.